when you look back in the early 90s and during that Rodney King situation and all of that happened, and you know, the whole unrest that took and broke over the city, you got to think a lot of this music was the backdrop to that. So I'm looking back at that, and I'm looking back through that whole decade. Then when you have the DMXs come along, and you know, God bless the dead, man. I mean, DMX, so many of us love DMX, you know. He was just, man, he spoke to, by him being from there, he spoke to so many dudes on the West Coast in a way that hadn't been spoken, I think, for, you know, by a lot of different artists out of the East Coast. That's why he's so loved here.
He had an energy that sort of went beyond what coast he was from. You had never,
Exactly.
you had never heard something like that, regardless.
Yeah, you never, it was like a bomb drop when that first album, it was like a bomb drop all over the city. They was just playing, I'll never forget, man. I'm like, I'll never forget, I had a 32-ounce of Magnum, and my homie was like, man, you heard that new DMX? His whole album? And I remember we just played it back to back to back to back. We sitting there rolling blunts, and we just like, damn, who is this? And I remember when we first seen him, we was like, where is he from? Where is he? We didn't know where he was from. You know, we was so young. And then we found out eventually he was from New York, but we was like, we hadn't heard nothing like him.
You heard so many people be like fake angry on songs. Yeah. But then you had him where it's like you really felt the sadness and the pain, you know?
Yeah, it was deep, man. It was deep. So I'll never forget. And then the second album. So when you're looking at that time, when you're looking at Master P in that era, and all of the music that came up out of that, you know, that time from the South, he was one of those engineers out of the South that made music that was relative to a lot of West Coast dudes. And the lifestyle that they lived was almost a lot similar to a lot of ours. And it just was so dope how he was able to integrate it and make it happen, and then show so many dudes his entrepreneurial spirit and his understanding and the dynamics of, you know, him being inside of the game from an independent standpoint and understanding how to monetize it in a way that hadn't been seen before.
Definitely. So, where were you during the riots? Your memories of that time?
Yeah, I remember exactly where I was. Back then, downtown on Compton Boulevard, there was a Circuit City. So when the riots first broke out, what is this, Acacia, Orleander, there was a store on the left-hand side. And I'll never forget, my mom's had a Hornet, and we went inside of the store, man, I'll never forget, and I must have took almost a whole crate of beer and put it in the back of there. Then we went to another store, we put different food in there. Then we went to another liquor store. So then the homies had told me, oh, we finna go over here and hit Circuit City. But they had bolted it up and everything like that. So I remember Compton, it was on fire, riding down Compton Boulevard. You just seen everything on fire. I'll never forget that.
Did it feel like the destruction in your own community, or did it feel like revenge on the police?
Looking back at it in hindsight, it was revenge at the police, you know, at that time. But then looking at it in a bigger, you know, spectrum of it, from being like, damn, we tore our own shit up. Because a lot of those stores had been in the communities for so long. A lot of shit was in the community and had been there and been staple points. So at the time, the anger was at the system, at the police, at the justice system, and all of those things. But in that, I think people really wanted to show, we will tear this motherfucker up if we don't get some type of justice. And so in hindsight, it took Los Angeles a long time to rebuild after that.
And it's interesting because I think last year during the George Floyd shit and everything, that was like the next round of like big protests for America. I remember there being like a very clear conversation on Twitter or whatever when you're seeing the sort of activist community speak to each other and stuff, where it was like, we're going to Beverly Hills to protest. Like, we're not going to do this in our own communities.
Exactly.
Which, I mean, I'm not like hugely in favor of people destroying anything, but I mean, that does make a lot more fucking sense than burning down like your grocery store that you go to every day.
Every day. You know, when you ask that question, at the time, it wasn't what we have today. It wasn't where all of these activists, we have the Black Lives Matter, we have all of these, socially conscious people of exactly what's going on and being able to coordinate things with Instagram, Facebook, and able to have all of these different social media outlets to be able to formulate and get, start brainstorming on great ideals. It was just a spur of the moment. It was a lot of anger. It was a lot of intensity behind that at that moment. And so pretty much Los Angeles wanted to show the world this was fucked up. This is fucked up. And in hindsight, when you look at it, it was truly fucked up because, we burned down a lot of our own communities, a lot of stores that have been there 20 years, 30 years. We had relationships with. You could go in some of these same stores, with a note, hey, I ain't got it right now. Oh, here, take a loaf of bread, take a pack of hot dogs, take this, take some Kool-Aid, take the rest. And, when you get your check, in these same stores, we burnt them up.
Damn. So around the time, like, leading up to you getting signed and all that, had you become kind of sick of the lifestyle that you were living, and were you looking for something that would be able to change your life, and were you thinking that music might be the thing?
I definitely did, man. Prior to that, it was a real turning point for me. Prior to me getting signed, I had been rhyming for a long, long time, and I had lived, throughout Los Angeles and Compton, and I had met someone that I truly loved a lot. And when I met her, it just really just gave me a different outlook on everything, and in the way that we were able to bond, and the motivation that she gave me, and the spiritual, settledness that I had with her. She was really a big factor in pushing me forward and towards my music career. And prior to me getting, signed, I ended up losing her, and she died of spinal meningitis. And so.
And she was young, I'm assuming?
She was very, very young. She was very, very young. And it was just so crazy. I mean, she had went to work. She went to work, as she normally do. And so that day at work, she ended up, using one of the utensils. She always packed her lunch. She always took her stuff to work. And so that day, she didn't. And so I never forget when she came home, she kept screaming how she had these terrible headaches. And she started screaming. And I called 911. And so when the paramedics, they got there, they was like, what did she eat? What's going on with her? I said, I don't know. And so when we got her to the hospital, the doctor was like, we want to do a spinal tap. Because at the time, I didn't know that the fluids that are on your brain are the same fluids that's on your spine. And so when they were able to run the spinal tap, they realized that she had spinal meningitis. And, there's 3 types, Adam. There's tuberculosis, there's bacterial, and then there's viral. And she had the worst one, which is viral.
Right.
So even though the doctors were able to shotgun all of these different antibiotics in her, hoping that one of them would penetrate and work, ultimately only her body could cure her. As she began to succumb to it, she lost the feeling in her legs. At the time, I didn't know that she was paralyzed. So every day I would rub her legs down with oil. Hey, press your foot against my hand, talk to her. And her hands was working perfectly, but she really had no mobility in her feet. She couldn't even press my hand like this, her foot against my hand. And so I started asking the doctor, hey, when will she have feeling? What's going on? And so eventually, towards her death, he told me that she was paralyzed.
Yeah. And she was your inspiration for wanting to make something out of yourself, but then did that change things for you? Did that make it hard for you to still have that motivation? Yeah,
I lost total motivation, to be honest with you. I'll never forget, man. I told my brother Hot, my brother Hot Dollar, I told him, I said, I don't want to do this no more, man. I'm cool. I don't want to make music. And he was like, what? I said, no, I'm cool, bro. I don't want to do it. And he was like, Black, you tripping, Black. And I was like, nah, I'm cool. And I was like, yeah, man, I'm cool. And so, my brother he just seen me mentally. I had lost something, and I lost a big part of myself spiritually, because this is somebody that I truly bonded with. And I never forget the way that the songs came together that ended up getting me the deal in different record labels, courting me, is songs that I ended up recording for his birthday because he begged me to come and do a song with him. And I was like, man, I'm not finna come to no studio. He was like, bro, you mean you can't come on for me, it's my birthday. I'm not asking you for anything. All I'm asking you to do is come and get on a record for me for my birthday. Can you do that? And I was like, yeah, you know what? I got you, bro. And I remember he played Pots and Jars, which is a single. Well, it wasn't a single. It was one of the songs that got me signed. And they played 3 beats, and I think in 17 minutes I had all 3 of those songs.
You recorded your part in 17 minutes on 3 different songs?
I recorded 3 whole songs in 17 minutes.
So you were just going off the top already at that point in your career, or what?
I just had so much material already written.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I had wrote like right before I walked out of the penitentiary, I wrote 600 verses. So I've been I've been doing this a long time, Adam.
Right.
I've been doing this a long time.